And greetings, everyone. I'm Mar. Once again, this is my opinion, as you can tell from the title up there. Continuing my trek through the episodes of Everybody Loves Raymond. We're now in Season 7. This is Episode 4, Pet the Bunny. And just for those of you who are a little eagle-eyed, yes, these first couple ones are being recorded out of order. Mainly because when I was starting to watch the first disc, I didn't want to watch a commentary at night, so I watched one of the other episodes on it. So sorry if that seems a little weird, but hey, sometimes you do it. It's just like with filming. Sometimes you got to film out of sequence. Now, just before I get too far into the video proper, just a reminder, if you want to support the channel, both the Patreon and PayPal links are down below. If you go the Patreon route, you'll gain access to videos early, and you'll also be able to suggest topics for future videos, such as videos involving 3 seashells. And if you want to just do a one-off support or a one-off request, go the PayPal route. Either way, your support is appreciated. Pet the Bunny. This is another episode written by Aaron Shuri, and this is also another episode that I saw in syndication. I know by this point in this review series, it's a drinking game. Every time I say that, or say I saw it on the DVD, or this is one I skip, you take a drink. But, yeah, because as I've mentioned a couple times before, when I started watching, it was in the lull between this season and Season 8, and syndication mainly on Channel 5 at the time was mainly going with the last couple seasons, and this is one of the ones from Season 7 that they were showing. Of course, as I've also mentioned, this is before I knew the proper order of the episodes, so just watching them randomly, like, and slowly pick together, like, okay, that's what's going on, that's what's going on. But this one is always interesting, mainly because it centers around the character of Frank and something he did when his boys were younger. And as you can tell from the title, it involves petting a bunny. Now, the catalyst that leads to it, and what really annoys Frank later, is the fun part. Now it starts on what seems to be a normal day. The Barones are in the kitchen, kids are drawing, they're hanging out. And, Robert comes in, and he sees a piece of artwork that one of the twins is drawing of him, and Ray's not on it, so he wants to keep it. And then Ray does his usual stuff like, yeah, they're not done. They still got to draw the bolts in your neck. Latest reference on the show to Frankenstein. That's another drinking game. Every time they reference Frankenstein or something else that Peter Boyle or one of the other actors did before starting on the show, you take a drink. Well, just by happenstance, Robert happens to turn the paper around and notices there's something written on the back. And it's written like a eulogy. As you know, Frank Barone always believed in telling it like it is, honor Frank Barone's memory. Now, Ray tries to pass it off at first in his joking style, like, Michael, why would you write this? But then they confront him about it even further, like, why would you do that? It's like, I was writing a real memorial column for someone else, which some people are going to go, huh? But it's true, sports writers, if someone dies in your industry, whether it be sports, film and all that, you are going to do a column on it. Just from one of my fandoms, every time someone in the wrestling world dies, Dave Meltzer always does one. And even people that don't like Meltzer's normal columns, from how he is always like musing on what's going to happen in the wrestling world or say this is going to happen, which, as an aside, the people that get offended or triggered, whatever word you want to throw in there, about how he words it, in a college setting, they teach you when you're doing a paper or something, don't put your opinion, because it's kind of implied at the beginning that this is your opinion. Now, for a column, I can understand why you would want to maybe probably differentiating it, but that's how they teach you to write. Don't do that. So I can see why Meltzer does that. But back on topic, even people that don't like him and go like, yeah, he makes crap up, fiction writer, even they will say whenever he does like a column for someone when they pass away, they're always pretty good. And here, Ray's doing something similar. But then his mind wanders and he starts wondering, like, if Dad died, how would I do it? And he started jotting down some ideas. And of course, Robert gets a little triggered, like, what makes you think you get to do the eulogy? Which is true. But the thing is, just because one person is hired to do the eulogy, which, to tie back into the show's canon, we already know Ray doesn't like speaking in front of others, like with eulogies. We've seen it a couple times, like when Gus passed away in Season 1, he didn't want to do the eulogy. But it's like 7 seasons later, would he really want to do Frank's one, or would he just write it and then have someone else say it? Or would it be easier for Frank because he actually grew up with the man, and whereas Gus, it was hard to do because even though he knew him, it's one of those things like, yeah, it's hard to write this type of stuff for him. But you go back on it, Robert does have a point. Ray, even though he is a writer and as he puts the stuff he wrote, it's like doodling, he should get, that doesn't mean he should be by default the one writing the eulogy. And also the fact is they all can have something to say. Now, as it turns out, what was on the back of that sheet was not all he wrote. And some of the other ones is on the back of drawings that were already given to Grandma. So Ray has to sneak across the street. And I believe this is the photo I already used for the thumbnail, where he goes across the street to try to find him, trying to be covert. And then, Ray's doing her thing. Oh, you want a snack, honey? You're like, yeah. It's like, he sees the things on the fridge. He's like, can you get it to go? Oh, yes, I could put a glaze of pineapple on it. You got any frozen treats? And then he tries to sneak him out, but Frank catches him and takes the photos. He's like, hey, they may be crap drawings, but they're my crap. And then when he tries to follow him, Marie already knows why he's there. It's like, he doesn't have the one with the eulogy on the back. And no, he has not seen it yet, thank goodness. And I just love what Marie's point with this is like, she's not offended in the fact that he wrote a funeral speech, even though the recipient is still alive. She's upset because she did not get one written for her. It was like, as we've seen time and time again, Marie always has to connect everything back to her. It's like, Marie, geez, you're missing the point here. And of course, Ray does try to deflect him, and then Marie's like, I'd like to see something by Wednesday. It's like, that's not the point of a eulogy. You're not supposed to see it. Like, Now, Ray does have a conversation with Deborah a little bit later. And he starts talking to her about some of the stuff. And one of the things he mentions is that when they were younger, they had a pet bunny named Hoppy. And their dad always said that he hated him. But then one day he came down and he saw his dad petting Hoppy. It was later at night. He came down the stairs to get some water. Now, Deborah wants Ray to talk to his dad about this. And Ray's like, no. Which, I kind of get Deborah's reasoning. Because he's never talked with Frank about this and it's been years. And it's one of those things that, like, it's a memory about his dad that stands out in his mind. Mainly, we'll find out later why it stands out in his mind. Ray doesn't want to talk to his dad about it. But eventually, Deborah, like, strong arms him into it. The next day, Frank comes in with some scratchers from the drugstore, and they start doing it. And he brings it up. And Frank really goes on it, like, what? Yeah, you're petting the bunny. I would never pet a bunny. And even when Deborah tries to play backup, like, no. And Frank just storms out. Now, this story about the bunny does spread a little bit like wildfire. Marie hears about it. And eventually Robert hears about it. We see when he hears about it, he starts teasing Frank a little bit. Oh, you pet Hoppy. You want a cookie? I'll give you a cookie. And Frank gets mad about this. I mean, he's a little annoyed when he sees Ray, even though Ray tries to apologize about it. But what makes it is just who Marie told the story to. She told it to Lee. And we all know who Lee's going to tell. She told Stan, who told Garvin, and they told a couple guys at the lodge. Now, the way they reveal this is a moment that I still love. And I just love how Stan and Garvin's actors, Victor Rader Wexler and Len Lesser, pull this off. And it just shows their chemistry with Peter Boyle, where you definitely believe them as longtime friends. Because they come in and they start talking about him. Hey, you're going to do the handball tournament? Starting off nonchalant. Of course, they bring up Bullethead, that one guy we saw from season 3, who apparently has a long-standing rivalry with Frank. He's like, I could beat him. And he's like, yeah, the tough guy, eh? And then Stan is like, you leave this at the lodge? He pulls out a stuffed bunny. And I love how Peter Boyle plays this, where he's looking at it like, what in the... Is this a gag? Just the way in his face, he's like, what's this? And then Stan and Garvin start teasing him. You know what it is. You know what to do. And of course, this is how we found out that Lee was the one who told Stan, who told Garvin, who spread it, and she was told by Marie. And why? And Frank is really getting annoyed by it. Going all around is like, I am a tough guy. I never pet no bunny. And then Stan breaks the thing. Then, why would Ray put it in your eulogy? Frank storms off to the basement, and then Ray has to follow him, and they have a little heart-to-heart. One of the many heart-to-hearts they've had in this show, where they're going back and forth. And to Ray, Frank finally does admit to petting the bunny, but he gives the reason why. I had to pet that bunny every night because the damn thing needed some attention. Because it looks like, kids being kids, you're like, oh, we want an animal. And then once they get it and they get bored of it, they're like, yeah. Which, I think we've all been there at one point. Besides something like a dog or a cat. Something like that. A standard animal. Or something a little still standard but not as rabbit, bird, or like that. You like it, but then you get quickly bored with it. Like as Frank puts it, Daddy, buy us a bunny. We'll take care of it. I was lied to. And then as they keep going back and forth, and Ray mentions why that memory of Frank petting the bunny stands out in his mind even after all these years. The main reason I remember it is because it's so unlike you. You are the toughest son of a bitch I ever knew. And you can tell Frank likes hearing that because he's like, you gonna put that in? And he's like, okay, you can keep the bunny story. And it looks like they make up for it, even though Frank's like, we'll play it by ear. And all in all, as you can tell from how I'm describing it, it is a pretty fun episode. And it does show that Frank is more than just a tough guy thing, even though we have seen stuff where he has gotten a little soft and done things for the family, like when he took the heat for Deborah for the canister, among other stuff. And of course, season 1, we find out that the whole thing involving the ball. But here, another one, and him connecting a little bit with Ray on an emotional level, which we know is hard for Frank to do. And the epilogue for it ties back in, of course, to Marie wanting a eulogy written for herself, and Robert going, yeah, I'm going to do it, and he starts to write stuff. But Marie shuts him down. But Raymond is the writer. Which, tied back into what I said earlier, like, just because he's the professional writer doesn't mean he's not allowed. Doesn't mean Ray's allowed to be the only person writing something for a funeral. And then Deborah's like, besides, you're a policeman. I'm going to need you for my motorcade to stop all the traffic. Marie, have you seen a motorcade? That is usually patrol cops. But then, of course, Robert decides to write one for Ray, which just ties into something that both Frank and Robert know, where he goes up to the attic one day. Imagine my surprise. I think we all know what Ray was probably doing up in the attic. It doesn't take a genius to put 2 and 2 together there. It's like dirty, dirty Ray. First the car, now the attic. Ooh. But that's really all there is to say about it, because all in all, it is a pretty fun episode. Probably put it in the favorite list. Let's see, I don't have the DVD set fully handy. It's around somewhere. You got the season 6 one right there. But the next one's also going to be a good one. And this is going to be a Deborah and Ray centered one. Mainly with Ray, because of him feeling, I don't know if they use the phrase burnout, but he's starting to get there. And he's trying to find himself a little bit. But that'll be next time. And it will be an interesting one. Till then.